The diagnostic terminal on his wrist flickered with urgent amber light. It had been blinking for the last hour, a persistent angry pulse against the perpetual twilight of the alien jungle. Kalen 471, a surveyor for the United Earth Colonial Command, ignored it. He knew what it said. Life support, 6%. Environmental integrity, critical. The tear in the environmental suit's membrane, sustained during his frantic escape from the crash, was slowly, inevitably, killing him. The planet's atmosphere was a toxic brew of methane and chlorine. He was breathing recycled air, and the tank was almost empty. He leaned against the gnarled, obsidian-black trunk of a tree that resembled petrified lightning, his chest heaving. The crash had been a fireball across this world's bruised purple sky. The Remembrance, his survey vessel, was now a scattered wreckage across a mile of this hostile landscape. He was the sole survivor. He knew this not from any rescue beacon that had been ripped away in the ejection, but from the cold, logical assessment of the situation. A human alone on an uncharted world with no comms and failing suit. The universe, he mused, had a particularly cruel sense of humor. The air, even filtered, tasted of copper and rust. The vegetation was a study in alien hostility, fleshy, pulsating flora that retracted when approached, vines that slowly constricted around the fallen branches of their neighbors, and a constant low hum that vibrated not in the air, but in his bones. This world, designated Xylos by some long-dead probe, did not want him here. The very ecosystem seemed designed to reject the foreign protein he represented. He pushed off from the tree and stumbled forward. Staying still meant death. The crash site was behind him, a smoldering graveyard of metal and his lost comrades. Ahead lay the unknown, which at least held the abstract possibility of survival. The diagnostic terminal flickered again. 5%. His mind, trained to observe and categorize, began to dissect his own fear. It was a fascinating process. He could feel the primal panic clawing at the edges of his consciousness, the ancient ape screaming at him to flee, to hide. But the surveyor, the product of a humanity that had clawed its way to the stars, observed it clinically. Fear was a chemical reaction. Adrenaline, cortisol, useful in short bursts, fatal if allowed to consume you. He compartmentalized it, filed it away, and focused on putting one foot in front of the other. He was looking for water. Not to drink, his helmet would seal and recycle what little moisture his body expelled, but for geothermal vents. Water, superheated by the planet's core, meant a potential source of heat, and, more importantly, a place where the base elements might be less hostile. A place to make a last stand. He found a clearing. It was not a natural formation. The obsidian trees were scorched, their bases melted into grotesque, flowing sculptures. The ground was a fused, glassy sheet, and at its center, a perfect circle of earth had been vitrified into a dull, gray mirror. A landing zone, and not a human one. The ship was a nightmare made manifest. It was not built, it was grown. A chitinous, asymmetrical structure of black and deep crimson, it pulsed with a faint inner light, like a diseased organ. It squatted in the center of the clearing, its surface slick with some unknown condensation. He knew this design. It was in the xenology briefings, the ones with the highest threat assessment. A Zargoth scout vessel. The Zargoth were the reason humanity had survey ships with ejection pods. They were the reason every new colony was built with plasma turrets and a hardened bunker. A species of pure apex predation, they did not conquer worlds for resources. They conquered them for sport. They were the monsters in the dark that every child's mythology warned them about, proven to be real and horrifyingly, cosmically worse. A section of the ship's hull, if it could be called that, irised open. A scent, thick and cloying like rotting orchids, washed over him, penetrating even his failing filters. And then they came. There were 3 of them. They moved with a grace that was utterly inhuman, a fluid centipede-like motion despite their upright stance. They were tall, easily 8 feet, encased in a natural bio-armor that was a deeper, richer black than their ship. Their heads were a horrifying fusion of insect and reptile, with too many multifaceted eyes and a vertical maw lined with rows of crystalline teeth that clicked and chittered with a sound like grinding glass. One was clearly the leader, its carapace marked with ancient, iridescent scars. The other two were subordinates, their movements twitchy, eager. Kalen froze. Every survival instinct screamed at him to run, to hide, to do something. But his body, oxygen-deprived and exhausted, refused to comply. He could only stand there, a lone human in a failing suit, facing the universe's ultimate predator. The lead Zargoth, the one with the scars, titled its head. The clicking from its maw intensified, a rapid-fire staccato that was, he realized with a chill, communication. It was speaking to its fellows. Then one of the subordinates let out a hiss that was directed at him. It took a single, graceful step forward. Kalen's hand, moving of its own accord, went to his utility belt. His fingers brushed against his surveyor's tools, a rock hammer, a sample container, a compact plasma torch for cutting rock cores. Useless. His sidearm had been in the cockpit when he ejected. He was unarmed. He was dead. But the human mind, even in its final moments, is a strange thing. It doesn't always do what's expected. It doesn't always cower. As the subordinate Zargoth took another step, its maw spreading wide in what might have been anticipation, a deep, resonant chuckle escaped Kalen's lips. It was a dry, humorless sound, swallowed instantly by the confines of his helmet, but it was there. He thought of the situation with a clarity that surprised him. He was going to die anyway. His suit had minutes left. He was on a hostile world, facing a creature of nightmare. There was absolutely nothing he could do to change the outcome. The fear, the adrenaline, the primal panic. It all just stopped. It was replaced by a profound and utter sense of freedom. He had no more fucks to give. The diagnostic terminal flickered its final warning. Life support, 3%. He reached up, his movements slow and deliberate, and with a soft hiss, unsealed his helmet. He lifted it off his head. The alien atmosphere hit him like a physical blow. It was cold, searingly cold, and the taste of chlorine and methane flooded his senses, burning his throat, his sinuses, his eyes. He gasped, a raw, involuntary sound, and tears streamed down his face. He took another breath, forcing his body to accept the poison. It was agony. It was also, in its own way, liberating. He was no longer a man in a bubble. He was just a man, naked to the world. The subordinate Zargoth stopped. Its head twitched, its multitude of eyes focusing on the strange, soft-skinned creature that had just removed its protective shell. This was unprecedented. Prey did not do this. Prey ran, prey hid, prey pleaded. Prey did not willingly open its own flesh to the killing atmosphere. Kalen looked directly at the lead Zargoth. His vision was blurring, his lungs screaming, but he held its gaze. And then, he did the most unexpected thing of all. He smiled. It was not a grimace of pain, though there was plenty of that. It was not a snarl of defiance. It was a genuine, human smile. The corners of his mouth turned up, crinkling the corners of his eyes, even as the poison air made them water. It was the smile of a man who had seen the worst the universe had to offer, and found it, in the end, to be almost absurdly anticlimactic. It was a smile of acceptance, of irony, of a final, private joke that only he was in on. The effect on the Zargoth was immediate and profound. The subordinate let out a screech, not of aggression, but of alarm. It recoiled, its graceful movements turning jerky and uncertain. It looked from Kalen's smiling face to its leader and back again, its maw clicking in a frantic, questioning rhythm. The lead Zargoth, the one with the scars, stood perfectly still. Its alien mind, a pinnacle of predatory evolution, was a computer designed to calculate threat, weakness, and opportunity. It had analyzed millions of prey species across 1,000 conquered worlds. It understood the nuances of fear, the patterns of flight, the timbre of a terror squeal. It understood the desperate final lunge of a cornered animal. It did not understand this. This creature was soft. It was clearly a physical weakling. Its environment suit was primitive, its technology laughable. It had no weapons. Its planet of origin, Earth, was a known quantity, a violent, tenacious world, but one whose inhabitants were still, in the grand scheme of things, prey. They fought, they died, and they tasted of copper and desperation. But this one had removed its protection, breathed in the death that surrounded them, and smiled. Not with aggression, not with defiance, with what looked like peace, with what almost resembled amusement. The lead Zargoth's own evolutionary history flooded its mind. Millennia of hunting, countless kills. It had faced the desperate, the cunning, the brave, and the foolish. It had never, in all that time, faced something that looked at it and smiled. The creature's biosignatures were a chaotic mess: pain, asphyxiation, cellular death. And yet, intermingled with that, was a signal the Zargoth's instincts could not categorize. It was a complete absence of the fear pheromones its kind fed on, the very scent that made the hunt worthwhile. It was a void where terror should have been. A predator without prey is nothing. A hunt without fear is just killing. And this was not a hunt. This was something else entirely. The subordinate Zargoth, its predatory confidence utterly shattered by the anomaly before it, looked to its leader for guidance. The leader's maw clicked once, a single soft sound, a command. Stand down. The subordinate's head twitched, its body language screaming confusion, but it obeyed. It stepped back, melting into the shadow of the ship. Kalen, his body now racked with violent shudders, his vision narrowing to a pinpoint, saw the movement. He saw the lead Zargoth raise one long, three-fingered hand. It was not a gesture of attack. It was a gesture of pause, of consideration. He was dying on his feet. The world was a tunnel of gray, but he kept his eyes on the creature and he kept the smile on his face. It was the only thing he had left to give. It was his final, silent statement. You see all this power, all this terror you represent? It means nothing to me now. I am beyond your reach. I am already gone. The lead Zargoth took a step closer. It loomed over him, a towering monument of biological weaponry. It lowered its head, bringing its multifaceted eyes close to Kalen's human ones. It could see the life fading from them. It could see the lack of fear. It could see the smile. For a long, eternal moment, the apex predator of the galaxy and a dying man stood face to face. The Zargoth's breath, warm and smelling of that cloying rot, washed over Kalen's already numb skin. Then, the Zargoth did something its kind had never done before. It stepped aside. It moved its massive frame, clearing a path between Kalen and the edge of the vitrified clearing, towards the relative shelter of the obsidian trees. Kalen's dimming mind registered the action. He didn't understand it. He didn't need to. With the last of his strength, he took a single, lurching step forward. Then another. He walked past the creature, past its subordinates who watched with unblinking, horrified fascination. He walked out of the clearing, a ghost moving through a nightmare. He made it perhaps 50 yards into the jungle before his legs finally gave out. He collapsed at the base of another obsidian tree, his body racked with final, racking coughs. He looked up at the bruised purple sky through the alien canopy. The smile was still on his face. He had faced the monster, and the monster had blinked. The Zargoth scout ship remained in the clearing for another hour. Its crew was in a state of profound disarray. The lead hunter, the one with the scars, stood motionless, its mind trying to process the data. The smile. The utter absence of fear. The audacity. It was a variable it could not compute. It was a threat it could not categorize. And in the cold, logical hierarchy of the Zargoth, the unknown was the only thing that was truly dangerous. When the ship finally lifted off, it did not continue its hunt on Xylos. It did not scour the area for other survivors. It rose on a column of silent energy and vanished into the purple sky, leaving the world to its rightful, chaotic inhabitants. The report its hunters would give to their commander would be the first of its kind. A report of a prey species that smiled, a species that, in its final moment, became something other than prey. A species that, by dying on its own terms, forced the ultimate predator to question the very foundation of its existence. Days later, a United Earth search and rescue team, tracing the Remembrance's emergency data packet, found the crash site. They found the scattered wreckage, the silent memorial to the lost crew. They also found the vitrified clearing, the unmistakable sign of a Zargoth landing. The discovery sent a chill through the recovery team that had nothing to do with the planet's atmosphere. A Zargoth scout, here, so close to human space, and no sign of a conflict. They found Kalen 471 by following the faint, intermittent signal from his diagnostic terminal, which had stubbornly continued to transmit even after its host had failed. He was lying at the base of a tree, his face calm, his eyes closed. His environmental suit was open, his helmet on the ground beside him. The readings from his final moments painted a clear, clinical picture. Asphyxiation, followed by systemic organ failure. But it was his expression that haunted them. The team leader, a grizzled veteran of xeno-containment, knelt beside the body. There was no rictus of pain, no grimace of fear. Kalen 471 looked almost peaceful, and on his lips was the faintest trace of a smile. The team leader looked from the body to the readings from the clearing to the undeniable evidence of a Zargoth presence, and back to that inexplicable smile. He had read the briefings. He knew what the Zargoth were. He knew they did not leave survivors. He knew they did not retreat. The only logical conclusion was that something had happened here, something so outside the parameters of known xenological behavior that it had broken the predator's own code. He looked at the dead surveyor, this man who had, by all accounts, faced the ultimate evil alone and unarmed. He saw the quiet smile, and in that moment, the veteran understood. He didn't know the details, but he understood the essence. The man had not been a victim. He had been a statement, a testament to a simple, profound truth about humanity. You can kill us, but you cannot make us fear you. We will go out on our own terms, with a smile on our face, and in doing so, we will remind you that the universe is not just for the hunters. It is also for the ones who know how to die with dignity. The report he filed would be classified so highly that only a handful of people would ever read it. It would contain all the data, all the forensic evidence, all the logical conclusions. But in the margins, in his own private log, he would write a single, simple sentence that would be passed down in whispered stories through the ranks of the colonial command for generations to come. He showed them a smile, and for the first time in their history, the predators stepped aside.